Welcome back. I don't know if this is going to apply once again, or apply to the channel, but welcome to Remembering Perfection. I find it funny to myself as I just finished recording a video, kind of rambling about the sacred geometry and all this kind of stuff that I'm learning, sort of crazy. But the thing I wanted to talk about was, like, there were two ladies that passed by walking their dogs in relatively close proximity to me. And I never really know whether I should say something or just pretend that they're not there. And I guess that's part of the distraction factor whenever it comes to people being around whenever I'm doing these things. You notice that, others typically, or not others, but I have seen other YouTubers doing something similar that kind of have the same thing, so not thinking that I'm alone in this by any means. But why? Why is it like that? Why does it become awkward somehow? Other than just what you're used to, And I guess that's all it is. Like, what have you desensitized yourself to? There's plenty of people that I have seen that are just walking through the streets casually with a camera in their hand and all this, or one example walking through, or a couple of examples walking through big touristy locations like in Egypt, where pyramids, like all the temples and pyramids and all that stuff are, just kind of doing their own thing. It's always, why is it like that for me is what I'm wondering to myself, And I guess it's just because I've never really had that. Man, tragic. My experiences have taught me some really ridiculous things about what it's like to have interactions with other humans, whether it be just outright ignorance or hostility or a feeling of contempt or resentment, or I don't know. Which is all just saying stuff about, my own personal relationship with myself. So it's like, how do we get to these places? How do we get to these places that, like something that rattles around in my head every once in a while and will pop up here and there, is when thinking about talking with others, what do I talk to them about? Have this kind of weird mythology built up in my head for some reason that I don't know what to say to people or how to relate to people or whatever. As much as I don't want to admit it to myself sometimes, I know I'm people too. So it comes down to, like, how am I ignoring myself, or resenting myself or whatever else, you know. And I guess it's just, you know, back to the same old thing where it's a programming issue. The code inside of your head is broken. I mean, one way to see it. Or it's malicious, like a virus. Like a mind virus. Maybe that's a more realistic way to look at things. But you know, that leads to the whole concept of these things being intentionally done, and maybe to some degree I can see that. Intentionally done to program us in such a way to make it so that we take ourselves out of the game. I mean, that's the only way that effectively works, you know. You can't force anybody to do anything. You got to convince them to do it themselves. And that goes for both empowerment and disempowerment, I suppose. So I can see why it would look malicious for sure. But it brings the famous quote from, well, Jesus, I guess. Forgive them as he was on the cross dying. Quote unquote, forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. I think it kind of comes down to that. Because they don't realize that, like the people that are trying to do these kinds of things, quote unquote, don't realize, or rather probably aren't certain of their own power. And so to whatever degree they feel as though they have power, it seems like a threat. If anybody else has more. And so in order to ensure that they don't, or that somebody else, again, quote unquote, somebody else doesn't have more power, they make it a little manipulation game in a way to get someone else to, like I said, take themselves out of the game. It's such a silly paradigm. There's this mythology in our world that seems that not a cooperative. It's I mean, that's the way it actually is. There's this mythology that it's like a dog eat dog, or like combative, or man, the words are not coming to me, but like it's a contest, or like everything that's reflected, you know, the in the sports that we have, where it's a competition.
Yeah.
Like it's a competitive world. You know, the survival of the fittest and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I guess, how could I forget about Darwin? How could I forget about Darwin? And, it's just not true. Look at nature, look at the way it operates. Everything is collaborating with one another, working with one another, harmonizing with one another. That is the way of the world. But because we have fallen so far in frequency, because that's all the fall of man was ever talking about, is the fall in frequency. We have this idea that we have to take, steal, rape, excuse the word. Maybe I shouldn't even say that at all. Pillage, whatever. Plunder. From our mother, nonetheless. And it's kind of funny because you'd think that we would just be thankful. I mean, you don't think that there's wisdom in the tribal communities that still exist, the indigenous communities that still exist around the world, and their reverence and like respect and awe and love for Mother Nature. I do. I'm not saying that in the culture and the society that I'm living in that I'm following those things directly. But why do we simultaneously look to the past with it's like a weird combination of like, the best way to put it, like disdain and also awe at the same time, because you know there are it's like I hear the concept of like the word primitive being used in like a demeaning kind of way. And also we look at the like architecture, the marvelous architecture of all these major megalithic stone structures that have existed from our past. On one hand, we call people primitive because they don't have the technology that we have in a like a demeaning kind of way. And yet we can't, like, we don't fully, I mean, we're coming to understand now, but up until recently, we weren't able to understand how the world, these massive feats were accomplished. Just so funny. I guess therein lies sort of like the, gosh, I'm really rambling at this point, but lies the, in a manner of speaking at least, the war between good and evil, light and dark, all that. But I really got off track from where I started, I think. Holy crap. Started thinking about, man, where did I start? It was like, not knowing what to say to people. I suppose I shouldn't take it any kind of way. This is just the way my mind works. And I can see how it would be hard to follow. So if you're having a hard time following it, hey, I get it. probably lost so many people that that it's not going to even. Well, why would I say that? That's silly. Bright people will find this. I have faith in that. If I even post this at all. So, we'll see. Either way, I guess I'll just end the video here. I'll just keep going down. I'll just keep going down rabbit holes. Keep going down rabbit holes, because that's my thing. Call me Alice in Wonderland. But anyway, if you don't do anything else in life, you only have one job, don't worry. You just gotta remember who you are. Either way, I love you. Peace and blessings. Until next time.